If you've seen our recent video regarding Jordan's recovery from his health issues, you'll recall that we criticized those who figured it was a good time to kick Jordan while he was down. Anyone who has taken Professor Jordan B. Peterson seriously should note that that is generally an unacceptable way to interact with others, and is probably more indicative of their own pathology and not Jordan's. This harkens back to Jordan's book, 12 Rules for Life. In Rule 4, compare yourself to who you are yesterday and not to who someone else is today. It is an indication in my mind that someone who doesn't get this hasn't taken what Peterson says seriously. Most people like this are not actually familiar with Jordan's work, even though they are readily available free of charge on YouTube. Most people who criticize him haven't actually engaged in the material which he offers. I can only imagine that the library offered up by Dr. Peterson is intimidating, a series being many hours long and packed with information. I remember I was also somewhat intimidated by the length of some of his lectures, but I decided anything worthwhile will be difficult to get through. So I did, and I'm glad I got the materials from the direct source and not second or third hand. I remember at first feeling like I had discovered something very unique, and I would encourage Peterson detractors to watch his long-form content. However, I suppose that it is more difficult than just keeping up their preconceptions. I believe this is a difference between a desire for truth and a desire for power. Power can often seem like it is truth, but enacted violently. One should keep this always in mind, that power and truth are nearly always in conflict. If your goal is power, then truth matters not. If your goal is truth, then power matters not. What I enjoy about Dr. Peterson is that he seeks truth and he is willing to sacrifice power in its pursuit. He is also motivated towards truth because the truth will set you free. So he is also motivated towards freedom and liberty, especially for the individual. The foundations of Western civilization rely on this fundamental principle. The individual has value. There is something special about each person. The figure of Christ, the person being sacrificed by the mob for essentially nothing, is symbolic of a great misdeed done by ignorant men seeking power. And the Western mission became stopping such things from ever repeating again. It doesn't matter whether or not you are yourself a religious person. If you are a Western individual, you believe in individual freedom and liberty. However, observe the Peterson detractors. Has Jordan done anything exceptionally bad towards them to warrant such hostility? No, he was merely trying to set us up on a path towards individualism through self-empowerment. Resentful people break Peterson's Rule 4 because they are comparing themselves to others and not themselves. This is a recipe for disaster, as people are never really equal. Capacity, quality, and circumstance vary significantly from one person to the next. So to put the blame for one's own lack of success at life is to set up a sort of compass and chart that can only have one destination: existential hell. I used to argue with this woman, a radical feminist, who usually was quite reasonable. She, however, became locked up with the negative attention Peterson got and became convinced that he was basically all bad. I know this woman is intelligent and reasonable, so I was very confused. Prior to making a real judgment of Jordan, I made sure to watch a lot of his material. In comparison, she hadn't read or watched much about him besides the shorter clips. Her opinion was steadfast and unrelenting. Peterson was a misogynist in her mind, Lord of the Incels. I got a glimmer of hope the other day because she confessed to having changed her opinion on Peterson, that she recently watched his materials and was very impressed that all his detractors were wrong when they vacuously denounce him. This gave me hope because an ardent anti-Peterson person was converted by mere exposure to the truth about him. To me, that indicates that the detractors are only a paper tiger who want him silenced because that would open up the truth and so destroy their holds on power. This also ties in with Rule 7, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. That is just another piece of evidence that his advice works. For what meaning is found in meaningless pursuits? Without meaning in life, we end up old and empty inside, often alone. Children may lose socks and gloves, but adults can lose entire decades in the pursuit of the expedient rather than the meaningful. I've even witnessed it. There is nothing more saddening and shocking than having a 40-year-old friend who never got around to starting the family he always wanted as he pursued partner after partner, drugs and alcohol, missed work too much, and was so often unemployed. It doesn't take much to achieve a goal if you slowly work at it after setting one up. There are some people who cannot have children as a result of a physical ailment. That is true. Not everyone has kids, but that is normally regarded as a tragedy. Shouldn't someone who was never able to get around to it also be considered tragic? Some food for thought. So what can we do as Peterson fans to help him? One method I have used is writing out my thoughts and ideas, even if done poorly. It is a good way to train your mind to think logically. It also helps to break down one's ego, as doing so really does expose you to the criticism of others. This will help you handle criticism better over time, perhaps learning from it, and making your ideas even more powerful. We are all imperfect beings, and it should never be expected that our works will be perfect. This is certainly never the case. But you can become great by putting pen to paper or fingers to keys, though I recommend using pen and paper first, as it is more physical and connected to your body. Another is to stand up for liberty and freedom, freedom of speech, freedom from tyranny. When you hear mouthpieces doing things in the pursuit of power and not truth, call them out and lambast them. Embarrass them, expose them for what they are doing. Do them no harm, for that's what they would do to you. But instead insist on the truth in every case. When is the best time to start trying this? The culture war is here already. It's either now or never, or at least not for a long time and with lots of suffering. Be smart about it. Plan and act. Stand up for your family and friends and coworkers, dissenting voices. If you don't stand up for others in their times of need, who will remain and be willing to stand up for you and yours? But above all, make sure that room is clean, bucko.